What are we gonna do when we get back?
What are we gonna do when we get back?
I'll take a shower and hit the rack.
I'll take a shower and hit the rack.
Welcome to Charlie Mike. If you're a combat veteran with an entrepreneurial bug and want to know what highly successful combat veteranpreneurs are doing to transform their sacrifice and experience to create their visual reality, then this is dedicated to your inspiring and fulfilling future. And now your host, Dwayne Paro.
No way, gotta run, feet, lots of fun.
Invest in Yourself ebook is my free gift to you for listening to the show and becoming part of the CO Nation. To receive your free gift, please go to landmarklifecoaching.com. Thank you for joining us on this episode. There are so many veterans with the core strengths to become successful entrepreneurs and continue to make a huge positive impact on our country. Here we highlight the amazing successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Combat veterans for the purpose of this show are soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen who have served the United States in wars, campaigns, and in theater on foreign soil or hostile waters. Our guest today is Greg Jumes. Greg is a Marine Corps veteran of the war in Iraq, who after leaving military service in 2010 turned to a career of high-threat security contracting in Iraq and Afghanistan. Greg transitioned to civilian life for the second time in 2015. Having a difficult time adjusting to civilian life, Greg found his new purpose, helping veterans adjust by developing a tool for them to find the help and resources in their cities. All right, Greg, well, welcome to the show, and thank you for being a guest.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you tell our loyal listeners all about your journey from a combat veteran to a successful entrepreneur. But before we get into your entrepreneurial experience, can you give us an overview of your military experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2006, I graduated from high school in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. At that time, I had already been in the delayed entry program for the Marine Corps for a year. I actually had my recruiter showed up at my 17th birthday, and my mom signed the papers on that day because you had to be 17 to join a year out with your parents' consent. So looking back on it, it was probably one of the cheesiest things I could have done for a birthday, but I was super motivated and excited to be in the Marine Corps. So I served out of 1st Battalion, 1st Marines in Camp Pendleton, California, deployed to Iraq in 2007 to 2008 in Al Anbar province. I was part of the George Bush's surge of troops at the time. So yeah, did that for, we had about 7.5 month deployment. Relatively, it was a deployment to Iraq as being an infantryman, so it had its ups and downs, but it was a pretty decent theater, despite, the occasional IEDs and small arms fire.
Yeah, and so when you finished your tour there, how long did you stayed in until 2010? So you came back stateside for a period of time?
Yeah, about a year and a half. And I didn't have enough time on my contract, so I got fabbed out on main side at the staff judge advocate's office. So I was doing just basically putting post-it notes on certain pages and certain investigations that they were running, whether it was criminal or death investigations. It was just just office work. Yeah. It wasn't fun. Some of the people got cool gigs like working at the gym or just fun stuff that it was a civilian job. I remember one of my buddies was like, dude, I took 2 weeks off of work because my boss is a civilian and he said I didn't have to come to work. Oh, well, and you have some guys that are on camp guard that are just standing fire watch for the next 6 months. And yeah, I had it pretty good, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes. But I left 2010 and I stayed in California for about 2 weeks just because I had some more time left on my apartment lease. So we went back to Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and that's when everything kind of got really difficult transition-wise.
Yeah, so kind of walk us through that, because that's important for people to hear. Some people's transitions are a little easier than others, and those that are difficult are for a variety of reasons and situations. And so I think, our listeners, as they're, contemplating transitioning out, have already transitioned out and may be in the thick of what you may have experienced. It's good for them to hear they're not alone and that there is a path forward. So if you could kind of walk us through,
of course,
that.
Man. Yeah, it was I thought that everything was going to be, very easy, that I get a good job, people are going to like totally recognize me for what I've done. And I didn't really have a plan. And I think that's one of the biggest things I attributed it to my failures of transitioning, was like, I didn't have a plan. I just thought things were going to be okay, because there's always like press releases from big companies and organizations. If you're a vet, we'll hire you, not a problem. And what I soon realized, it was a lot of lip service, that it's really hard to get people to do what they say they're going to do, because sometimes it's just something that they needed to do internally to make their company look a little bit better or stand out. But anyways, man, yeah, it was bad. I remember crying leaving camp, driving from California into Arizona, because it like started to really hit me that I'm not going back to work. Like, I'm not going back to formation. I'm not going to be doing stupid hijinks in the barracks, like all that stupid fun stuff that you kind of were like, oh, this is stupid and I don't want to do this, or like, this is so dumb. I just found myself missing it like so much. And then realizing like, you can't, even if I turned around and went back to California, it wouldn't change anything. My life was completely different. I got back to Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I was married at the time. I have a son, and my wife and him were living in Japan for like the last couple months while I was in the Marine Corps, because she's Japanese. So I had like a couple of months in Sheboygan before they came over, because I want to like get everything set up, like get a job, get an apartment, everything is basically starting over. But not a lot of that happened. I found myself hanging out with the wrong people. I started drinking, pretty regularly, then like during the day, and then started using cocaine quite a bit. And my life just started spiraling out of control. I got to the point where I was out of money. My mom, none of my family members knew how to really interact with me or like tell me what to do. We're like, hey, is there something you want to tell us? Can we help you? But nobody knew how to really talk to me. So like, how do you talk to somebody that just returned from a deployment in Iraq and just left the Marine Corps? And you value yourself as being a veteran of being so responsible and so mature, but in reality, like, you're an idiot when you get out. Like, you're so far behind everybody else, because you went, like, for me, I went from high school directly into the Marine Corps and then out of the Marine Corps. So like, I still had the mentality of like, I'm just a young man. I can do whatever I want. And then on top of like feeling like you're invincible from having like a good deployment, or just being in the Marine Corps, just having this ego, it just started to like take over.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because, I myself went in, at the same age, and it is, you go in and, you go in from, you kind of, for most of us, we have a relatively decent upbringing. We come from a, relatively structured family environment into the military, which is completely structured, and things are set up for you, and you just, you do the right things and you progress well, and it's an honorable path forward. But like you said, when you get out, say you get out after 4 years, 17 and 4, that still doesn't put you to be very old, and so
No.
You're early 20s, and you're like, okay, there is zero structure once you get out. And so, without a plan and without structure, somebody who's used to having that as a natural way of life for you, especially as a young adult, it becomes very, very confusing as to, I don't even know where to begin.
Right. It totally was. And I found myself really kind of identifying the little things that people really don't think about when it comes to transition, like the little life skills that you need to do as an adult. Because, my 4 years in the Marines, it was, you show up at this time, you can get chow from this time to this time, and then lunch from this time to this time, and then dinner from this time to this time. Like, everything is just there for you. All you have to do is do your job and like be the best at it. But when you get out, it was, okay, I remember like I called to try to make a doctor's appointment, and I didn't have a primary care physician, and like the nurse is asking me, or the receptionist is asking who my primary care physician is. I'm like, I don't know, how do I get one of those? Like, what? Like, I'm looking in the phone book, like looking for primary care physician, but it turns out like you just need like a general practitioner or somebody who you go to regularly. I'm like, oh, no one ever told me this. Mm-hmm. And the things are like, oh, I have to go grocery shopping. Like, what do I have to cook for myself? Like, I haven't had to cook for years, and now I have to like come up with all this stuff. And it seems like little things, man, but when you're in that type of vulnerable state of like starting your life completely over and trying to learn everything all at once, a lot of that stuff gets overwhelming. And it's like, how do you minimize all those little things, right?
Yeah.
Like, how can you focus on the things that are important while the other things are just kind of there for you?
Yeah, exactly. It's very hard, and while the government does some amount of transition assistance, they don't really. I find they don't advertise well that here's all the plans that you're really gonna need to be thinking about putting in place well before you walk out the door, so that you at least have something to go by. Because without those plans, like you said, you're really left there looking around, saying, now what? And so as you did that, did you transition into some kind of standard job for a period of time? And
Yeah, I got out and I was selling used cars, which was like the worst because your integrity and your loyalty is constantly being tested. Like being told to sell cars to people that can't afford them just so you can make a sale, so your sales manager gets money or a commission and you make a little bit. Like I just found myself going deeper and deeper into like a hole of like, this isn't who I am. Like this is like, it was kind of like an identity crisis, maybe. I don't know, but where I didn't feel like myself. I left an organization where everybody was pretty much loyal with most things, and like pretty like integrity was a big thing. Like you can't be an integrity violator. Like that's something you don't do. And in that line of work of selling cars, it was constantly lying to people, and I hated it. And then I just got to a point where I wasn't selling cars anymore, and I wasn't making any money. I wasn't happy. I was bouncing at a nightclub in my hometown, and I didn't feel like I was worth a damn. That was probably like the lowest point that I was, because I just didn't feel like I had purpose. I didn't feel like anything I did mattered. It's like, okay, cool, I'm just existing now. Like life is way bigger than this. Like there's more opportunities out there, but you can know that there's opportunities out there, but it's like, how do you find them? And that was the biggest thing for me, because I went back to my small hometown and I thought I could be a cop, I could be a firefighter, I could own a bar, I could do civil service, I could be a security guard, and like that. None of that really seemed fun to me. And it wasn't until I moved after contracting, I moved to Chicago and I started networking. And that's like the biggest thing that not only vets, but people in the current generation and the next generation of veterans, I don't think that the social skills are really there as much. Like you have to talk to people. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, like all I could talk about was the Marine Corps, and people were like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. That sounds really cool." But at the end, I started realizing that none of these people give a shit, right? Because there's really no reason for them to, other than like, oh, if you have an entertaining story or a funny story, yeah, that's cool. You have to entertain people. If you just want to talk about that time that you shot a dude in the face, like, yeah, you have to know your audience. Like stand-up comedians don't just get up in front of nowhere and just be like, all right, well, let's see who's going to laugh at me. Like every person knows their audience, and you're supposed to, if you want to have an effective conversation. But then I figured out why. It's because, and then what I think, and again, I'm not like a data scientist, I don't have any real statistics, but I found there's veterans that are transitioning that 1 to 3 year period that are having that identity issue where they left in an organization or an environment that everyone that was in the unit, for the most part, wanted to be in that unit. They wanted to be in that job specialty.
Correct. Yeah.
So when you're talking to around the smoke pit or at chow or in the barracks or going out, like all your crew, your tribe, they're all like the same people. Whereas you have people that go to college and maybe you have like a really close friend in 1 or 2 classes and you just like it, but you're only in that class for like an hour or two or a couple times a week, right? You're not like living and breathing around these people. So these people in school, your peers that are in the same age group as you, have more of a social understanding of like how to interact with different groups, different demographics, different cliques. But you get a Marine that comes out and it's like, oh, well, I really don't know what else to talk about because this is all I've done for the last 4 years.
Yeah. So how did you get into what were the steps that you took to break into the the networking? Because even some people will struggle with networking just for the fact that they figure, well, I'm an introvert, say, and introverts aren't supposed to be good at networking, which is really a misnomer. But they'll use that as an excuse. But given the position you were in, what was that avenue you used to kind of break into networking and getting in with your people per se, right? The people that understood where you were at and where you were going.
I asked people. I would ask questions anywhere, anything that seemed interesting to me, because like to me, if it's the mindset you put yourself in. If you go to a networking event and say, I just want to ask people things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all you're doing. You're gathering intel. You're gathering intel to figure out what you want to learn, who you want to learn from. It's like a dating game. It's like a machine gunner having 1,000 rounds of belt-fed 7.62. Like, he's going to put as much lead down range, and he's going to try to hit something. Like, you need to be a machine gunner. You just have to talk to people. And just like a lot of vets, if you ask them one question about their service, they're probably going to give you a very cool story. They're going to talk a lot. And at the end of that conversation, that vet's going to go, that was a pretty good conversation. And in reality, all you did was talk. You talked the whole time because somebody asked you something. So turn that around. Give somebody else the opportunity to ask about things. Let your service or your cool stories come up in a story that's relevant to the person that you're talking to. You build rapport.
Yeah, that's great advice. I had a mentor once that said, stop trying to be interesting and be interested, right? Be interested in them. Be interested in what they have going on. And as they're talking, you can find those points where you can interject value to their story, to them as a person, to their business, and relationships will spawn from there, because people actually do like to talk about what they have going on. And if you're the one who's going around, like at an event, like you said, a networking event, and you're just purely there to be interested in what others have going on, it's extremely effective. I wholeheartedly agree with that approach, and it actually ends up building a lot of relationships that last after that conference or that event.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to get into how Greg jumped into the entrepreneurial realm with his very successful company that he has now, and what that is and what it's all about. So we'll be right back. Landmark Life Coaching's vision is to be the nation's premier coaching partner for inspiring and empowering those in transition. They partner with courageous groundbreakers and transitioning veterans to create fulfilling and empowering futures that they desire. They have partnered with various entrepreneurs and transitioning veterans to leverage their core strengths and implement the framework for the future they always dreamed of. Could you or anyone you know benefit from a success partner to bring clarity to your future or their future? If so, please check out landmarklifecoaching.com for more information and charliemikepodcast.com for the Charlie Mike Podcast, showcasing the successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Hey, we are back with Greg Jumes. Greg has been taking us down the path from when he joined the Marine Corps at the young age of 17, and went and served our country in Iraq, and then became a contractor for high threat security, and as well served our country again in a very similar role. And he took us down the path that what his transition was like, and how tough that was, and the things that he ran into, and how he started. Before we went to break, he was talking about how he used networking to turn that around and figure out what others were doing, what was interesting to them, what was really going on, so that then he could be more conversational and more effective in his communications with people who weren't prior military per se. And so, Greg, can you kind of take us into how you started into your entrepreneurial realm, and as well as what you've created so far?
Yeah, of course. So I was working on a contract in Balad Air Base in 2015, and this was like 4 years into my contracting world, and I found myself working around the same people that I originally started working with in Kuwait. Not the exact same people, but just like the same type of people. I mean, older guys that have been in the contracting world for like a decade. And you're like, well, why are you've been working for 10 years, like you should be a project manager or something. But at the end of the day, these people are just contractors. They go where the contract is. So I started to see like a very not so cool future of just like, cool, I'll just work out of the country for most of my adult life, and then maybe just like retire alone with a bunch of dogs in the woods. Like, the last part's not that bad, but like everything leading up to that is it didn't sound fun to me. And I was dating a girl at the time who wanted me to come back. She wasn't well, familiar with military deployments and long distance relationships. So I was like, you know what, maybe this is the kick I need to really transition, like officially. But it was so scary, the thought of having to transition out of that line of work, because I remember how bad it was when I first transitioned, and now my life just went just all hell broke loose. So it was very stressful and worrisome. But I got a job working at an e-commerce company in Chicago here, doing intelligence threat management and executive protection details, which I was like, all right, cool. I've been doing this in high threat areas for a while. Like, I totally get it. Like, I'm going to rock this. So I passed all the Skype interviews and ended up finding out that I was selected. The first guy turned it down, and then it got sent to me. I was like, yeah, I'll do it, but I'm going to get fined for leaving this contract because it was a year-long contract. So I had to pay for all my expenses to get home, which the company ended up reimbursing me in the form of a bonus check, which got taxed at a very high rate rather than like reimbursement. So I'm like, oh, well, this is off to a great start because I'm already like behind now, which was cool money-wise. But it was a cool job. It was a very fun tech environment. For the first time, I felt like I was in high school again because I never really worked around like a male-female type corporate workforce. It was like, oh, this is like I'm in school again. Like, I get why people go to college. Like, this is fun. Like, wow. But it was like maybe a couple months into it, I was like, all right, this is not what I want to do. Like, there's no threat here. There's no reason for me to be here. I mean, one of the biggest, calls that we had was a customer was upset that he bought too many Van Halen tickets and wanted a refund, and he was going to come all the way to our office from Washington to beat everybody up. And I was like, all right, dude, like that's not going to happen. Like, if you're complaining over $60, there's no way you're going to figure out the logistics to get all the way here to like maybe try to get past our front door. And I didn't like it. I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, 6 months ago I was flying around in Black Hawk helicopters with U.S. cash to pay off, guard members. Like, it was really hard because you're like, oh man, I'm never going to be that cool again. I'm never going to have that much fun again. Like, I'm never going to be able to take those cool photos. Like, people don't go to work at their corporate jobs and like take pictures with like random stuff or like cool things. Like, it's not an adventure. It's just, it's like you're stagnant. But I was part of the employee resource group for veterans at that company. And we brought in a panel from Bunker Labs here in Chicago. And after the panel was done, I was like, oh my God, like, I can own a business? Like, nobody told me I could do that. Not like anybody ever did have to tell you. Like, no, I don't think any successful business owner was like, you know what? Somebody came and knocked at my door and they told me I could start a business. So I did that. No, it doesn't work like that. Like, people see opportunities, but I think people need to see the very low hanging opportunities that are, oh, you do that? Oh, I can do that. When I was working at that e-commerce company, I was guarding billionaires, like going on vacation with them and to events. And you start to see that these people who in the military would be considered like your commandant or your command sergeant major or like 4-star generals. You're like, dude, these guys are like robots. Like, how did they do that? Like, how are they so successful? But at the end of the day, you start to see that these people are just people. Like, they're just people. And I started looking at myself like, all right, these people would never have been able to do what I've done in my history and in my lifetime. They're too weak. They couldn't do it, but I did it. So if I can do that, and I don't think you could do that, I think I can do what you can do because I've accomplished something that I think even less people have been successful at.
Yeah, no doubt. That's a good point because I think, prior military, especially people have done, such high profile stuff like you were doing for the Marine Corps and then as a contractor, you kind of dismiss it because, what's ordinary to you is actually pretty extraordinary to others.
Yeah, that's a huge point. People don't realize that because people are too like, they don't use it as a tool. They almost use it as like a sympathy tool. It's like, dude, that's a huge leg up. That mindset is huge. The fact that you accomplished that is huge. Now let's figure out a way for you to use that as your own personal brand. Like, that's who you are.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I always tell people is do not throw away what you developed in the military because it's second to none and it will make you stand out anywhere you go. All you got to do is make it your brand, like you said now. And make it this is a core part of who I am and what I bring to the table.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So you guys had the Bunker Labs event in which, Bunker Labs is a pretty outstanding organization. I got the chance to attend their annual muster this year down in Raleigh. Dean Bunshu put on down there, and it was Absolutely phenomenal. The things that they're doing and have done in a very short period of time. I mean, when you look at the history of that organization, it's actually pretty short. And so they've, individuals like yourself that have gone through that program to some extent have created, quite successful companies as a result. So can you kind of walk us through how you had this event and how things kind of transpired?
Oh yeah. So they were at the event and they were kicking off their first cohort in Chicago, and I applied for it. I'm like, hey, I wrote a concept proposal. I did all the stuff that the executive director had asked the applicants to do, and then I got accepted. And I was like, oh, cool. Oh man, this is like the first step. And I was going into it, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna raise money. Like this is gonna be awesome. Like, oh, it's gonna be great. So I went through the 12 or 14 week program that the first one was. It was once a week for like 2.5 hours. So I was still working at that e-commerce company, and I would work a full day, and then I would go over to the Bunker Labs office and sit there for 2.5 hours and learn about businesses. And that was like the most exciting part of my day. It was like, oh, because I really like this. Like this is something that can be huge if I want to, and if I want to stay with it and do it the right way. So I went through the whole program with nothing. I didn't have a website. I didn't have a product. I didn't have shit. But it was just like going to school for me. But some of the exercises and the homework assignments, it was kind of hard. Like, hey, build a financial model. I'm like, I don't have a product yet. I have an idea. So like that part was hard. But all that did was I just had all this information and all this knowledge for when I got to a point where I wanted to execute it. I had the training, so to speak. It's like if you could go through a 3-month boot camp of how to be a civilian, you would probably be pretty ready to transition out of the military, especially if that was regimented, like not regimented like Marine Corps boot camp, but like this is the curriculum. This is what you're going to learn. These are your takeaways, and this is how we're going to train. Oh, cool. So that was pretty much like my business boot camp, right? So I was still working full time, and and I was working on Victor, part time here and there because I was getting complacent. I was getting really complacent. I was like, I'm making $75 a year, and I have full benefits. And Chicago, so the cost of living is obviously expensive, but it was comfortable. I had a dog, I had an apartment. This is cool. I came to work for a one-on-one with my manager in September 2016. So I've already been working at this place for like a year and a couple months. And one of the HR ladies was, they weren't all ladies, but this was an HR lady sitting across the table. And I'm like, instantly I knew, I'm like, oh crap, I'm getting sacked. Like this sucks. This is not a one-on-one. This is a one-on-two because my manager was there and she was there. And it was like me. I'm like, oh crap, this is not good. So, and this was right after I bought my first home with a VA home loan, which, by the way, use your VA home loan. It's one of the best benefits you'll ever have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a crazy, awesome benefit. But I had my first mortgage coming up, and I had just had surgery. So I had a leftover medical bill from my insurance company. So like I have all these bills now, and I'm like, I was ready to like really get grounded and settle with my life, and then it just got flipped upside down. It's like someone just light switched. Like, nope, lights off. Figure out how to turn them on. By the way, we cut the power. So I was just like blown away. I'm like, oh my God, like what am I going to do? I'm going to have to sell my house, or I'm going to get rid of my dog. And oh my God, I have to go back to contracting and shit. But it was, I went through a couple of days of just being a nervous wreck and drinking a bit. And like, what am I doing? Like, this is stupid. Like I have something that I can do. Like I have the foundation to build something. And I'm just going to run away and go back to what's most familiar. That was like when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went back to Sheboygan, Wisconsin, because that was the most familiar community to me. Like I just ran away instead of driving forward and pushing through. I just like stood in the doorway and you're like, oh, never mind, I'm going to go back. So I applied for a sponsorship through WeWork, which is a co-working space that I've been with since October of last year. And they've been absolutely phenomenal. They sponsored me for 3 months of office space. Gave me discounted office space for the next over the course of the year, and then they recently, a couple months ago, they upgraded my office to a six desk office, and it's been great. So from that time forward, it was like, all right, I have an office I need to pay for now. I have a mortgage I need to pay for. I had a severance from my previous employer, so that was enough to like keep me afloat for a couple months. So I'm like, all right, I need to build this product now. And I wasn't able to raise money. I didn't have a product. I didn't have a team. Investors looked at me like, hey, good idea, dude, but come back to us when you have $1 million in revenue and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, all right, well, then that's easy for you. Like, that would be easy for you to invest in me when I have all this going on. Why would I come back to you? I want people to be a part of my team that are investing in me. So I did an Indiegogo campaign, and I raised $26,000 on the Indiegogo campaign to pay for my product, or the prototype, which was shit, by the way. It was minimal functionality, but it was enough for us to get into the App Store. It was enough for us to say, hey, all you investors, everybody else I've been talking to, when you met with me, I had notes. Now I have a team. Now I raise money on my own through the internet without giving up any equity. And now I built a product, and now I want, 30 minutes of your time. Talk to me now. I've done everything you said I needed to do. Now I'd live up to your side of the bargain. And that was, to me, it was pretty huge because I got a lot of feedback. It's like, oh shit, this guy's actually serious with it. Because there's a lot of people that talk. They like to talk about their ideas, and it makes them sound like, oh, I'm going to do this someday. Like, I still have friends that will come to me with like these crazy ideas. I'm like, all right, dude, then how can I help? Well, man, if you could do this or we could do that. I'm like, no. How are you going to do this? Because your ideas keep changing. So from October of last year until presently, I won an award for $72,000 through WeWork in a pitch competition. Out of 600 companies, I was one of 5 that were awarded a prize, which is pretty cool because I pitched for $500,000 in New York City in January with the same competition, but it's a global finals. So there's been a lot of, once I separated myself from a full-time job, and I think that's what I'm trying to get at, is once you actually focus on what you want, like, you'll see exponential growth. But like, it's hard, especially if you've never had to really set your own schedule. Like, it wasn't until I started doing my own business that, like, oh shit, I need to put stuff in the calendar. Like, I need to plan my days out now. Like, there's things that I need to do. Because when you're, a lance corporal or, a junior enlisted, you just show up to places. Someone's just like herding you around, and you're just like, all right, I'll go over here. Okay, I'll go over here. Just, you want me to wait here? All right, how long? No, we can't tell you. All right, I'll be here. Like, everything's done for you. It's super easy. But once you start scheduling your stuff out, like your days, whether it's, I need to look for a job for the first 2 hours of every day, and then I need to go to these networking events every week so I can maximize my connections on LinkedIn. All that stuff you have to do on your own. And it's good to start that early.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. It sounds like you've really figured out a good part of getting started and getting the funding without, like you said, without giving up equity and things like that, or taking on a potential partner that's not going to work out or have the same vision as you do. So it allows you to really build that solid foundation and more.
Yep.
Yeah. So what's kind of some one or two things that you've got on the horizon here that's going to be like good milestones that you got coming up that you're working towards?
So we're going to be releasing the next update of the app, which will allow us to call on our nonprofit partners and corporate partners nationally, because the MVP that we have in the App Store right now is just local to the greater Chicago area. There's no search features. There's no geolocation. There's no push notifications. There's none of that because we couldn't afford it. But now in this next iteration, if you're in San Diego, we can work with those chambers of commerce. We can work with those large corporations that have a presence there and start getting them on the app. So people that are in Camp Pendleton or Miramar or any of these large military installations that have lots of nonprofits around there, we're going to be working to partner with those nonprofits to get them on the platform, to use their audience and their influence in their regional areas to get our users on board. So if you're looking for a job when you're getting out, you might be able to see partners as we start to close them. We're working on a couple deals right now that have great veteran hiring initiatives, but also other philanthropic and community-based hiring initiatives. So diversity, inclusion, veterans, LGBT, like, we want to be the go-to for those local resources, those local community events, activities. We want to help you leave your duty station that you're at and help you find a city that you want to transition to that can kind of replicate the community that you just left. If you're looking for a city near the water because you like fishing, we want to help you find that city. We want to help you find not only that city, but a loan officer in that city that knows how to navigate VA home loans. Like all that stuff, we want it to be so easy that you don't have to go back to your hometown and try to figure things out or get sucked into a complacent lifestyle. Like, we want you to take success from the military, go home for a couple weeks, hang out, but like have a plan before you even exit. Have a network before you even exit. Know where you want to go or check out. Talk to people there through the app. Hey, what is it like to be a cop here? What's it like to be a marketing specialist? Did you have to go to school? Okay, you have to go to school. Well, guess what? These are the educational partners that are not traditional four-year universities, but they offer accelerator courses that your GI Bill is approved at. Yeah. Like, we want to make those connections, because right now there's like a gap between, there's like a cliff at the end of TAPS, and then there's like a huge cliff of like getting your shit sorted out. And we want to be a bridge that kind of comes up to just, hey, wherever you want, like a bridge with multiple off ramps, like wherever you want to go, like we're going to make those connections for you, because it's easy for not only our partners and our businesses, but also for the user. I mean, you have to make it so easy for vets, because for me, it was like, oh, well, if someone's not going to knock on my door and give me a job, like, then I'm not going to work. But I want it to be that easy, because if it's not that easy to begin with, you're just going to be overwhelmed.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. And that does happen to many. So you're onto something amazing here, and being able to have a single source for that information, because that's one of the biggest complaints is, I can get this piece here and I can get that piece there, but a lot of people can't necessarily stitch all those pieces together in any way to be productive with it. So
right,
being
like,
able to have that
resource
is great.
We'll give you the tools. We'll make it easy for both parties, but like, it's not just going to be your easy button. It's like an easy tool, but it's not going to.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we want to show, because like when I went into the Marine Corps, when I knew I wanted to be a Marine, I was just documentaries about the Marine Corps, the history, movies, posters. Like, I got to see what the company, what the culture was in the Marine Corps. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, it's so hard to do like your research on what you want to be. It's hard to see what it's like to be in an office at LinkedIn. It's hard to see. It just, the things like that where you might go, oh crap, like LinkedIn has free breakfast and free lunch. Like, that's two things I don't have to worry about. Oh, yep. Okay, awesome. Oh, they ride scooters through the office from different conference room to conference room. Oh, that's awesome. Like, that's fun, but it's hard to get that out there, because people right now, they don't know where to look. And we want to be that third party that kind of brings all those great things about different corporations and nonprofit organizations to the platform. So it's easy for Lance Corporal Smith to figure out on their phone, like, oh, that's a pretty good rating for what I'm looking for. Like, cool. I want to reach out to that recruiter at that organization.
Yeah. Outstanding. All right. Well, this has been an amazing conversation, and as we're running out of time, I'd like to give you an opportunity to let our listeners know how they can get in contact with you and learn more about your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, we're a new company, so we're on all social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Social handle is Victor Tech Inc., all one word, if you search it on any of those social media sites. But our website, you'll find our events. You'll find, if you're a small business or a business, you can sign up your business for free. Right now, you can have your discounts and specials, and the next update that we send out, you'll be able to promote your jobs and also your events. Basically the website. You can get our team email addresses on there, and we have a contact submission form. And sign up for a newsletter, so you'll be up to date with the recent PR that we've been getting. We were currently in the Street Shares voting contest, so I think we're in 5th place. So we need all the votes we can get. That's pretty much it. The website, Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn, Gregory Jumes, the only one, I think. So it should be pretty easy to find.
All right. Well, outstanding. Thank you again for being on the show, and most importantly, thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you, sir.
Remember, loyal listeners, we are the home of the free because of the brave.
Thank you for tuning in to Charlie Mike Podcast with Dwayne Paro. Our objective is to bring successful veteranpreneurs to help inspire and provide insight into what helped them become successful, with the hopes you can take away various strategies you can implement in your entrepreneurial journey. Visit us on iTunes, leave us a rating and review, and let us know what you thought of the show. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hoorah!